Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the sixth meeting of the Technical Working Group on Disaster-Related Statistics. I can see that our chair is not yet around, Miss Aryuna. So, there you are.
She is
There you
there.
are. Sorry.
Hi
Okay,
guys.
I give you the floor, Aryuna, to start the meeting.
Thank you, Maria, and good afternoon, dear working group members and ESCAP colleagues. Welcome to the sixth meeting of the technical working group, and I would like to thank all of you for your time to joining us today. And before starting the main part of the meeting, let me provide a brief overview of our last meeting. And we technical working group members through the Mentimeter poll indicated topics for future meetings, topics of in between meetings, and then also training or workshops and other related activities through the Confluence platform. So we are more interested in data collection, data utilization, data analyzing, policy and regulations, as well as production of disaster risk statistics. Also, we want to use the Confluence platform for information sharing, exchanging information regarding the training opportunities on disaster-related statistics framework topics, addressing issues, sharing solutions and innovations, and of course, engaging with other regions. As for topics for workshops, trainings, so we are more about interested in data standardization, data regulation, collection, as well as, again, regional collaboration. Also, we had several presentations from our secretariat from UNESCAP, and then also we had a presentation about the Clyde from ADRC, and then we had a very informative and an interesting presentation from Cambodia. So if you allow me, I would like to start today's meeting. So we'll start with the Secretariat's briefing as always. Today we have two presentations from our Secretariat. The first, Ms. Maria will present to us about the highlights of the 52nd Statistical Commission side event on setting the global standard for disaster-related statistics, which was held in February this year. So then we will have a presentation by Mr. Puji Pijano, and then Puji will introduce the draft 5-year strategic plan for our working group. I hope that all of you had a chance to have a look at the draft, which is available in the Confluence platform, and then looking forward to your comments and inputs on that. And in the last part of our meeting, we will have two counter presentations from Bhutan and Turkey. So let me start this session. Now I would like to invite Ms. Maria from UNESCAP to start her presentation. Maria, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aryuna. So for this afternoon, I'll be presenting the highlight of the 52nd side event of the UN Statistical Commission entitled Towards the Global Standard for Disaster-Related Statistics. Next slide, please. Okay, is this the enlarged version? I think this is, okay. So the organizers of this side event are UNDRR, UNESCAP, and UNSD, and the main objective of which is to raise the awareness of the newly established interagency expert group on disaster-related statistics. And other objective is to share country experiences in producing disaster-related statistics. So the background and the TOR of the IEG was presented in the side event by Rika, but I would like to repeat this for the benefit of the members of the TWG. So with regards to the IAEG, it is under the purview of the UN Statistical Commission based on its mandate, based on its decision made in 2019, which recognized the need for a better and internationally comparable data on disaster-related statistics. It requested 7 UN agencies, which you can see here on the screen, to establish the formal group and take the lead in supporting it. So the seven agencies now termed as the core group convened the group first in April 2019 and worked on the preparation of the TOR, which was eventually approved by the Bureau of the Statistical Commission in October 2019. So for the TOR, we have UNDRR and UNESCAP as the co-chair of this global group, and UNDRR also as the secretariat. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Ing. Please go back to the previous slide. That's the last slide. Okay. So the primary objective of the IEAG is to advance a common statistical framework that will provide the benchmark for an international comparability across all regions of the world. And its key function is to consider previously agreed regional statistical frameworks and recommendations, and in particular the DRSF, which was developed by the UNESCAP as the starting point for this global and universally accepted tool. And among its key functions also is to organize a regular expert forum on disaster-related statistics, which includes a broader range of experts who can contribute their expertise in disaster-related statistics. And its methods of work involve regular meetings and work through electronic linkages, and it will link closely with regional groups that are doing disaster-related statistics, such as our TWG and also the UNSD's expert group on environment statistics, among others. Next slide, please. And the country presentations in the side event was one of the main highlights also of the side event. So 5 countries were selected to represent the 5 regions of the world, and 3 of them come from the NSOs, while 2 of them come from the disaster risk reduction offices. So for the NSO experts, they were asked specific questions to answer, and this is on what are the current opportunities and challenges that their countries are currently facing, and what was done or what can be done to address these challenges. So this provided a discussion, the basis for discussion among the countries. So you can see here on the screen the initiatives and the opportunities that were presented in the side event, among which for Indonesia, the one disaster data, which was already presented here. And for Lebanon, they presented that the COVID pandemic provided a lot of opportunities to use non-traditional data sources and gave rise to the development of new indicators. And for Italy, it's said that it's important to collect core indicators on disasters that are practical, visible, and connected with the Sendai framework and SDGs, and that synergy among institutions is very important. And now for the DRR experts, they were asked on what steps were undertaken by their country in the management of disaster-related statistics and how these support evidence-based governance. So the representative from Chile presented the creation of a national statistical registration system for disasters. And for Africa, represented by Eswanini, they have a disaster loss and damage system and local risk and impact reporting tools as systems that provide this kind of evidence-based governance in their country. Next slide, please. So for those of you who are interested to look at the side event and see for yourself the whole meeting, I have provided here the link to the side event. So this is all for the side event highlights, and over to you, Arjuna.
Thank you, Ms. Maria, for your presentation, and then let me congratulate Indonesia for represented Asia and the Pacific region for this side event. So if you have any questions, please hold it until I will get it from after Mr. Puji. So I would like to invite now Puji from the Secretariat to start his presentation regarding the plan. Puji, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Arjuna. It's nice to see you in your uniform. We haven't seen you in that uniform for a long time with that 3 stars.
Thank you, Puji.
Thank you. Madam Chair, colleague from the Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen, member of the Technical Working Group, I'm pleased to present to you the first draft of the 5-year plan of the Technical Working Group. This draft, we put it together after interacting with you for the last 5 rounds of meetings, as well as after conducting the survey and also having personal discussion over the phone with some of the countries in the sub-regions. Generally, we have the impressions of what is required in conjunction with the Technical Working Group in order to support countries establish disaster statistics. So there are 3 areas, the way we construct the draft so that it's making it easier for members to have a look, to internalize, to give feedback, and eventually to own the plan for the next 5 years, is to split the work into 3 areas. The first is the on the if you see at the left side there, the area of works, and then next to that is the present status now. My impressions of after discussing with you individually, and also looking at the presentation and other sources, this seems to be our present status. And next to that is the ideal situation that we would like to reach at the end of the 5 years. And then the next 5 columns is how the 5 years are broken down into year periods, and what are the steps that we will probably go through that is incrementally increased to reach the target. Right? So that's the way to read this this table. And then I would like to present one by one. Kuning, if you move to the next page, please. Next to that, the large print. Okay, let's stop at this one. Okay, the lower part, Kuning. Let's go down to the, yes. So, colleague, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chair, the first area, which is, I believe, is at the core of the Technical Working Group, as the word implies, as the name implies, I suppose, is to strengthen the capacity of members to put together disaster-related statistics. So that's the first area. Our reading of the current status is that there is no or limited capacities that are exchanged through Technical Working Group. Okay, what we have are a sharing of our status, our challenges, and some of the accomplishment. And the target in the next 5 years, in our reading, is that the Technical Working Group will become an active platform in which members will exchange with one another inputs, suggestions, models that would then strengthen the technical capacities not only in the form of formal trainings, like e-learning module that you have seen presented here, but also thematic training, maybe even experience sharing and exchange, and technical assistance or sharing of good practices through the technical working group. So that's the ideal state. Now, what we put on this table, on the first year, this year, 2021, we thought that this is, or the remaining of the year, the next 8 months, we could devote time, the technical working group, to assess the needs, right? Apparently, every country has different needs. Every country has different setups. So we could continue the situational analysis paper that I'm putting together into something that is more extensive and more pointed. At the same time, the e-learning module, e-learning curriculum that was showed to you by Sokol from SIAP in the previous meetings has been conducted now and is being translated to different languages. So that making it more accessible, right? And that we hope that throughout this year, we will get to be more familiar with the use of Confluence. Because as we keep saying, the technical working group is too short to discuss anything deep. This is by far is information sharing. So we should be able to use the Confluence as our marketplace, if you like. Who need to have some support, who could offer support, things like that. So that's the first year, 2021. We thought that on the second year is a time for demonstration, right? Out of the technical needs that we identify, maybe we could identify which one are the priorities that are agreed to be addressed first. I'm sure there are many needs and we have a limited capacity, so we would respond to the priorities. And then from the e-learning module that was implemented regionally, perhaps next year, individual technical expert then will get more familiar with the e-learning courses that was available in different languages. And that the Confluence will become more active with the transactions, okay? In 2023, we hope to see e-learning to be conducted at national level. So maybe Mongolia, Ms. Chair would like to do training specifically for Mongolia using the same module but with a different flavor, right? To dig deeper, the Philippines might focus on certain thing. But what I'm saying is that the e-learning can become more tailor-made in a way to the context. And then members could start transacting through the Confluence more actively. And out of this exercise, we hope that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 10 experts will appear. Mr. Sanjay from India, for example, right? Or maybe, I don't know who else, Rafiq from Bangladesh, who are active. They become champions in the technical working group, and they become resources for fellow members, right? So we hope that to happen. Meanwhile, the good practices are being documented. On the year 24, we hope that the TWG will move into the endorsement, which is endorsing the list of the trainings, endorsing the expert in the roster, and also start, getting more intense with the Confluence. And then we imagine that by year 24, members should be able to undertake or to conduct training in their own countries, using their own contacts. And more the technical capacity, good practices are being documented. And finally, in the year 25, that we hope that countries will conduct training at sub-national level, because at that time that the training will be fully, if not mostly, contextualized already. And members start taking the Confluence as part of their regular work. So this is with regard to strengthening technical capacities in 5 years. Now we would like you to have a look, to give us feedback so that we can improve this plan. And if that's agreed, then we will write it up and have it adopted. Next one. Next page, please. In terms of numbers, don't go too far. In terms of numbers, Madam Chair, we would also like to offer you some sense of progression. that in year number 2, that the RSF is adopted in 1 country, and then 4 countries, and 7, and at the end, at least 10 countries will adopt it. I think having number is important to tell us whether we are progressing or not. Otherwise, it's just a discussion, isn't it? Let's move to the second area, please. Kun Ing. Second area is with regard to the second function of the technical working group. Our technical working group is a platform where we could contribute to the global efforts, right? We could stand together, we sit together as Asia Pacific region and communicating, contributing to the processes going on now. As Ms. Talento has reported to us just now, there is an interagency expert group at the global level in which the work of this technical working group will become one of the pillars. So in that regard, the 5-year plan, imagine that ultimately the ideal scenario is that the technical working group, meaning member states in Asia Pacific, will be able to contribute to that process, and as a result, the internationally agreed standard that will be adopted later will incorporate the perspective of our region, right? So that's the ideal situation. How do we get there? We thought that in the first year, in this year, we will continue to compile our perspective through the technical working group. So Madam Chair and Vice Chair, from time to time, we would ask the progress and the perspective in the region. And we submit it to the global process because there are already individuals designated among countries in Asia Pacific. There are experts among us who are member of the global group, right? And we have Rike there, we have Maria there, and we have some other experts. So these people will communicate, will bring our perspective to the global process. On year number 2, we thought that our region then will organize expert forums, thematic forums, to discuss the documents that come from the global. There are some issues that need to be discussed. There are some challenges that need to be addressed, or some innovations that need to be found, and some good practices that need to be collected. On year number 3, we thought that the technical working group will be actively giving feedback to the global process through our champions. Yeah. And in year number 4, we hope that the global group will somehow arrive at the advanced copy or advanced draft of the standard. And the technical working group, our group here, will be in a good position to validate some of those premises, the frameworks, and whatever coming out from the global group. And then eventually maybe to endorse it as well, so that Asia Pacific is really part of the global standard. And on the last year, on 2025, then we adopt that standard, and then we disseminate it among members, and we dissect it and making it as part of our practices here in the region. So that's in so far as the technical working group's role with regard to contributing to and to be part of the global group and coming out with global standard, which at this moment is not yet in existence. And finally, the third part, Kun Ing, the last part, is in terms of supporting members to address the issue of governance. From our interaction, from the presentation, I think you will notice that one of the big challenges, in addition to the data, is the governance, right? The arrangement of the policy, the institutional, the coordination, all of this are big headache, in addition to the data confusion. So we need to address this together. Now, with regard to governance, we thought that at the end of the 5 years, the technical working group will be in a good position to offer the governance with regard to disaster statistics in each of the countries. Year number 1 being identifying and assessing what are the different situations now. Mongolia has different feature compared to Turkey, compared to Sri Lanka, Although we have commonalities, maybe the names are different, but the nature of the relationship seems to be slightly different between NSO and then NDMO and other ministries and local government. Seems to be different. So we need to know more about this. In year number 2, that the governance from the assessment, we can have better understanding and making it as a part and parcel of the disaster-related statistics. Okay, and certain framework that is already in existence now, the result of the work of our colleague in UNECE. If you recall, UNECE has a task force that went in parallel with the RSF expert group in ESCAP. And they have come out with a report. As we come out with the RSF, we can make use of that and see how that could be used as a way of assessing and understanding governance in our region. Instead of creating a new one, we use that template to see how it looks like. On year number 3, perhaps we could already start recognizing that there are indeed different models, right? They're heading to the same direction, but there are countries that has the statistical system that is decentralized. There are NSO that has centralized system. There are NDMO that has a statistic units. There are NDMO that is only partial of the data. What I mean is there will be different models. And then some of good practices could also already be documented as well on year number 3. In year 2024, we hope that we have some discussion at the Statistical Committee as the one that gave mandate to TWG. And at least 5 countries will have developed a model for governance. And finally, in 2025, we hope that some of the good practices are compiled in many countries and continue to be developed. So, Madam Chair, there are 3 areas: the technical capacity. Number 2 is the role of contributing to global process. And the third one is supporting the governance models in member countries. And each are split into 5 steps in the next 5 years. And we hope that members would discuss this and give input to us, and we will revise before we pass it on back to Technical Working Group. Madam Chair, thank you very much. Over to you.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Puji, for a very crucial but very detailed presentation, and then hope our working group members got very comprehensive understanding regarding the 5 years plan for our TWG. So I think it's time to open the floor for the discussion and questions. If you have any questions or comments or any inputs for the plan, please raise your hand or leave your message in a chat box.
Or if there is any additional information from Ricky, from Maria to the plan that would complement, maybe this is a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Ms. Ayuna, is it okay if I say a few words?
Yes, of course, sure.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks both to Maria and Puji for your excellent presentations. I have put a few points in the chat box of just some key messages on or pieces of information from this side event at the Statistical Commission that I think it would be, let's say, of particular interest for members of this technical working group to really take note of, basically. I mean, the basic matter of the fact from the side event, both from the presentations and the discussions, it's very clear that all the topics we are discussing in this technical working group and the issues each of you are facing in your national context is something that's shared with countries all over the world. There's really a movement to push for better data and statistics on issues related to disasters, and particularly to disaster risk reduction, because this requires these long-term plans, policies, strategies, where we need data that go beyond one particular disaster. This is where we want to be able to do these trend analysis, etc. Everyone is struggling with it. The good news is we have this new global group, which both Maria and Pucci have now mentioned. This new global group is going to focus on setting standards for this work. So it's not a global group that's going to provide technical assistance or something like that. It's a global group that wants to put in agreed terminology, agreed ways of grouping and classifying things, agreed standards for, let's say, the quality of the compiled statistics. The basis for this global group is actually the work that you have done here in Asia and the Pacific on developing the DRSF, the Disaster-Related Statistics Framework, which is not a standard yet, but it is the best thing available at the moment, and that has been recognized globally. So this is something, you know, we should take pride in. And it's also quite unique that we have the starting point for a global standard that's based on the experiences and the situation in Asia and the Pacific, which is just a very good thing. So we have an excellent starting point for engaging in this global group. They are waiting for us because they know that we are more advanced than elsewhere. This is also the reason why ESCAP at the moment is actually co-chairing this global group together with the UN's Disaster Risk Reduction Office, UNDRR. So this group, this TWG, can really influence the global work, and we should. We have a lot of stuff to contribute with. But we are also in a position where we can learn from countries elsewhere in the world. And this new global group gives us some opportunities for doing that. And this is just a pitch for a first expert forum, which is one of the activities Pucci also presented as part of the 5-year plan of this TWG. We are organizing the very first expert forum globally for producers and users of disaster-related statistics. It's going to be held 7th, 8th, and 10th of June this year. It's virtual, which means all of us, if we are prepared for slightly late nights, have the possibility to participate in. It's a forum that's being organized within the context of this new global IAG, but with very active involvement from this part of the world. So those are a few notes, particularly just to supplement Maria's excellent overview of what went on at that side event at the Statistical Commission. Now, in terms of the 5-year plan, this is, of course, something that in drafting it, Pucci has taken the main load, but both Maria and I have been involved also in putting this draft together. So I don't want to start commenting on what Pucci presented, because then I'll be commenting to myself also. So I really want to hear from the TWG. What I want to stress is, you know, this TWG, it is what we make it. So there's nothing that's set in stone. This 5-year plan is a draft we are putting to you for you to tear it apart and put in your own suggestions. What do you think? You know, what is the best? How can all of us benefit the most from this group? This is really what a good 5-year plan should tell us. So with that, Madam Chair, I hand it back to you, and I really look forward to hearing from TWG members. I hope and expect a lot of input to this plan, because It's necessary because otherwise it's just going to be some words on a piece of paper. This has to be a working document that helps us strategize our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky, for your additional information to the Maria and then Puji's presentation. And then thank you, Puji, Maria, and Ricky for developing the draft of the 5 years plan. So, dear technical working group members, if you have any comments or inputs for the plan, please, now it's time. Yes, Ms. Shazna?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Chair. I just wanted to ask on the component on the e-learning conducted at national level, you mentioned, right, in the replication stage. So it is tailor-made. So I thought, as you mentioned in the bottom part, we will be having technical capacity on creating champions and good practices, right? And I believe if it is nationally adapted trainings, we need to build the champions within the countries, right? So we have to, I mean, like in a decentralized system in the Maldives, the disaster data are being collected and compiled in the Disaster Management Authority and the NSO. Just, I mean, we both are a bit, I mean, at the moment very weak on this area. So I thought we might, as a country like Maldives, may need the trainings to build the champions as well within the country. So I guess that will also be incorporated in the technical capacity component, right?
Madam Chair, did you get that one?
Sorry, Puja, I missed. Sorry.
Sahnas was asking that perhaps at some point, this training at the national level would require national-based champions first to deliver the training. Would that be part of the 5-year plan or not? Is that correct, Sahnas?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's part of the question. You want to compile some question to answer later, or you want to have it one by one, Arjuna? Let's get some more questions, no?
Yeah, let's get some more questions. So we have two members that raised hands. Wanti first. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much. I just want to support that Mrs. I said from Maldives that we need the champion for each country, because I think we need to have almost the same perspective in related to the training. And the second I think just inform to you all and also Pak Puji that Indonesia, after the SET meeting, we try to develop standard and also the metadata related to the disaster statistic in the national level, and we will use the RSF to be our framework. So maybe Pak Puji, we Indonesian need maybe we will try to do first with our country to have some progress in a standard and metadata, and as Rike said before, I think we need also the support from this group. Maybe after then we can I mean present our work, and then we ask all of you to make any comment of the thing that we already done. I think the plan that already made by ESCAP almost the same as our plan that in this year we try to have some standard in Indonesian national level, and I know that maybe it's not that I mean maybe we need some improvement from you all, so but we will try for do this. So maybe when I see in a plan that one country should be the maybe Indonesia will be the one of the country in your plan for this year. But sure, we need your help, everybody help, because we just have like just work for this. Because in Indonesia, as I mentioned before, we have the SDI, One Data Indonesia. So we try to make it practice here, not just for the framework, but we try to do it. This is just my information from Indonesia, and I agree with the Maldives that we need to have a champion in its country. Maybe you can have some trainer of training to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wanti. Also, we have a question in our chat box. It's from Kazi Brahman, and then I believe he is asking about how country will report on the progress. Any other questions from audience?
Madam Chair, if I may, please.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Yes, this is Vivian Ilarina from the Philippines. I would like to congratulate the ESCAP. This is a very interesting work, good work, of course, to congratulate Ricky, Maria, and Fuji. I believe this has been a result of hard work, and this already encompasses the very essential requirements for the development of disaster statistics. No? And of course, we are not starting from the beginning, from zero. We have the DRSF framework, initially also by the ESCAP, where the Philippines is one among those 5 pilot countries. And we saw that that framework helped us, for the Philippines, for example, to really look at the available data on disaster and how this will be strengthened in terms of its uses for better decision, for planning, for programs. But we saw that based on that pilot activities project, we saw that we have yet to develop much on the disaster statistics. So this is something new in some countries because, of course, we prioritize, of course, economic statistics, social statistics, but disaster is something that has to be, you sit down together with other agencies, not only the statistical office. I saw that in the framework example, no, we subscribe to our submission to SDGs, Sendai Framework, FDES, and other accompanying framework where we are linking the DRSF. But my question now is in terms of number 3 areas, supporting members' governance of disaster statistics. How do we really look at the available data? How do we put together all this concern in terms of improving the data for disaster? How to address data problems, data gaps, inconsistencies, and so on. So I think this will also it might help if we need to highlight in the strategic plan very specific as another row how data can be improved, or do we need a data improvement plan within the 5-year period? This is to guide countries. What is the first thing to do in this first year, second year, and so on? And how do we go about this? And another concern also is what are exactly the role of the statistical office, and what are exactly the role of the other agencies like disaster management agencies, because more often than not, when you go at the country level, those that are those agencies that are specializing on very specific areas, the data are lodged with them. Like for example, if you have financial and monetary statistics, these are lodged in the central bank. If you have like trade data, they are lodged in the Department of Trade and so on. So in the case of statistics, possibly we can also identify some convergence, how to really look at the institutional framework. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Back to you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Vivian, for the questions. So I'm afraid that we've run out of time. So let me quickly answer the question from Ms. Shazna. Of course, that would be good initiative to have the championship for disseminating all information or knowledge to the country. So I think the working group members, also the Secretariat, will encourage that initiative to raise the championship. Rest of the questions, Puji, do you want to give a short answers?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To our colleague from Maldives, I think if you look at the row number 1 on the technical capacity, part of that step is from the regional trainings. I think Ipuwanti is correct to suggest some sort of training of trainers. So I guess what happens is members could raise this at the confluence, that some country need to have country level training, that they would like to propose training of trainers, and other countries would support that, or maybe the request secretariat to provide some of the capacities, right? What I'm suggesting, let's use the confluence as the platform to raise this one, both to come up with national level training, but also champions at the to create champions at national level, and for them to undertake training at the sub-national level, especially for countries where the statistical system is decentralized by geography as well as by sector, right? Now, along the same line, in the case of Indonesia, which making us very happy, Indonesia has become one country that raised its hand to share the progress on the development of the national standards, right? This is not the final thing. This is a thing in progress, and Ipuwanti said that she would like to consult other countries through the technical working group using the confluence. This is exactly how it should work, right? So when that product is half done, maybe 75 done, Indonesian colleague will bring it on to technical working group and have a further discussion in other platform and communicate through confluence, and other colleague would give input. And in the process, everybody learns, right? So congratulations for Indonesia, and we are happy to support that. Now, the question, how would country report on the progress? There is no such thing like country progress in this 5-year plan. This is a technical work group's plan, all right? So the progress would be a technical working group's progress. When we talk about 1 country, 3 countries, and 4 countries, that simply means that member countries would undertake training in their place and will be reported here at the technical working group. Answer to Vivian, to the Philippines. How to address data gaps, at the same time also addressing the institutional arrangements and policy. That's precisely what we discussed earlier. With regard to data, we thought that data gaps, the inconsistency and so on, in itself is an issue that we have been struggling and will continue to struggle. And that will be part of the technical capacity that we try to address through the exchange. Now, with regard to the, and on that sense, maybe we could think whether they require special additional role or not, or should it be just part of the technical work, right? And with regard to governance, what is the real model now? I'm afraid there is no real model. Each of the countries developing their own. Indonesia is developing, Philippines is developing, and so on. But UNECE, as I said earlier, at the same time with our DRSF, they has a task force that put together these governance considerations. What we can do is perhaps Secretariat could share with colleagues here the product that's already published by UNECE that specialize what are the suggested framework, what are the role of the NSO, what are the role of NDNO, what are the role of other agencies, and how they should interact. That framework is already drawn by UNECE as we develop the framework here. That's it, Madam Chair. I'm standing for the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ricky, would you like to add some more answers?
Yes, just a few additions. Thank you very much, Ms. Ayuna, and then I also have a suggestion. But in terms of the reporting, the question about how a country is reporting progress, just to add to what Puji mentioned, which is absolutely correct. We are a group here, and it's not for each country to report to this group on their progress unless we decide so as a group. The reporting requirements of this TWG is to ESCAP's Committee on Statistics. So we are supposed to report on the progress of the group every time this committee meets, and they meet every 2 years. Next time they meet is next year. And what we choose to report is something we can decide as a group. We could report very, very simply, the group has met this many times and these were the things we've talked about. Or we could say, let's use this opportunity to bring a few issues to the attention of the chief statisticians in the region and say, well, for this particular report, we actually want, for example, to do a survey where we ask each country represented in this TWG to provide some report on their progress or specific constraints or what kind of help they need from statistical offices or whatever. So this is something we can decide. It's an opportunity, but it's also a matter of prioritizing where we put the time and work and efforts of this group. Then additional reflections on Vivian's excellent comments also. I think we should actually elaborate a bit on that row called governance at the moment. Indeed, as Puji mentioned, the work of the European Commission, ECE, specifically talks about institutional setup and specifically on the role of statistical officers. Vivian, you mentioned the issues about the data particularly, and what we could consider is to develop some kind of diagnostic tool that could help countries assess data availability and quality at the outset as a first step in an implementation plan for the DRSF. But this is something we can discuss. We've developed, which some of you are aware of, and I know particularly Vivian is aware of, we've developed a diagnostic tool broadly for environment statistics, which we could adapt to disaster-related statistics. And that might be helpful as a bit of a guide at a very startup phase in a country, helping to map out the existing data landscape, you could call it. So these are my additional reflections. And then just one suggestion, and that is basically for our dear chair. Maybe you can reflect on whether you think that might be a good idea. we have the option in Confluence to make this draft 5-year plan a draft that everyone can comment directly in the document and make changes. And I'm wondering if we should open up this 5-year plan for the next 2 weeks for anyone to actually provide either comments in it or directly write additions or additional questions for clarification. And we could make this as a little specific task of our TWG, which could also serve as a good way for all of you who have not become familiar with the Confluence platform yet to actually try to work together on one document. Because I think it's important we all get into the substance of this 5-year plan, because it's a plan that we need to own together and agree on together. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, really, Ricky. I fully agree with your ideas to add the amendments or inputs on the 5 years plan. If someone who is not signed up to the Confluence platform, please do it immediately and then put your inputs for the next 2 weeks. So even if we don't have any time, I would like to have one more question from Mr. Casal. Yes, please, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm from the National Institute of Statistics. I don't know. I just wonder whether the people from the specific area, the National Committee for Disaster Management will come to the technical working group or not. If I am from the NIA, sometimes it may confuse to the people in this area. As you may know, in Cambodia, sometimes it conflict in the data producer. So I think it is difficult if we have some training without inform to the specific agency. So it is my concern.
Yes, Puji.
Right. I had a conversation with a colleague from Cambodia about last month, as well as colleague from UNDP in Phnom Penh, as well as colleague from the National Committee on Disaster Management. So I think at this point, and from that, when it was presented by Mr. Kosal, it was clear that at this moment, indeed, as it is the same like any other country, there is no clear connection between the National Institute and the National Committee on Disaster, right? These two are working together under the same cabinet, but on different priorities. But I think this is exactly why this disaster statistics become important, because it requires the connection of the two. So I spoke to a colleague from National Institute of Statistics, and then I spoke to a colleague from UNDP that promote the projects there, and then colleague at the National Committee, and I even pinned down the name of the official who is responsible for disaster information management. So my suggestion to Mr. Kosal is, if you like to reach out to our colleague from NCDM, Excellency Manorith is in charge of that. If you like, I can make a call for the three of us to discuss even. And then we get him to come to this meeting, because Excellency Manorith was part of the expert group before that built this DRSF. So it's time to bring him back. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Puji. So thank you again, Ms. Maria, and then Puji, and then of course Ricky, for your work and then for your dedication to working group members. So let me close the first session and turn over the floor to Ms. Shazna from the National Bureau of Statistics Maldives to facilitate our next session. Ms. Shazna, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to moderate this session. And actually, the topic of this session is on country sharing of good practices, focusing on data collection, compilation, and data utilization and data sharing. So I guess with the time allowed, I think this session will be for around 30 minutes from now. And this session will have two presentations on the country practices and their efforts towards establishing disaster-related statistics in those two countries, where the first presentation will be by Bhutan on developments and initiatives on disaster-related statistics in Bhutan. And this will be followed by a presentation by Turkey, which is on the current efforts and the challenges on disaster-related statistics in Turkey. So I guess I will allow each presenter around 10 minutes for their presentations so that we can open the floor for another 10 minutes for discussions and comments and questions as well. So through or after as previous sessions, through or after the presentations, participants may put forward your questions in the chat box, and as well you can raise your hand function to get the flow. And I believe this session also would be an interesting one for all of us. So without further delay, I'm happy to introduce you the first presenter from Bhutan, Mr. Sonam Sharing. He's an engineer, GIS specialist from the Department of Disaster Management. So Mr. Sonam, the floor is yours.
Hope I'm audible. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we can hear.
Very good afternoon to Madam Chair, organizer, experts from different countries. As already introduced, my name is Sonam Chawal. I'm a civil engineer and I work as a GIS officer also. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Puji for helping me prepare this presentation. When I got the offer to do some presentation, I was scared. I was not sure what should I present, because in Bhutan we really don't have disaster statistics, and Mr. Puji, he consoled me saying that it is not only Bhutan that lacks the real disaster statistics, and he said that many countries do not really have this, and we are all in the same wavelength or same pace in the preparation of this disaster statistics. And we basically discuss our broad outline of our presentation, and then he helped me. And I would like to thank and acknowledge that most of the inputs here are given by Mr. Puji, and I thank you very much. So I would like to direct. Okay, my presentation is basically sharing the present situation, like what we have, what enabling environment we have, and then what you would like to do. And yeah, first of all, it is very clear that disaster statistics is very important and it is necessary and we need it. And if I just read as everybody can, I think it will be easier for members present here to listen or just read along. Bhutan disaster is very imminent. Hopefully, no. though we have not suffered major disaster as long as I know, but time to time we face small but affecting our lives here. Bhutan's economy is driven by public sector hydropower that contributes 30% of our GDP, and private sector, it is very weak. We have shortage of skills, especially in terms of disaster, and Bhutan, it is in the most seismically active zone. It is in zone 4 or 3, and as I've said, we have not really experienced major, but we have experienced in our lifetime. But major one, we have the record of major ones in 1897, 1995, 1934, and 1957. So here, my generation really haven't seen major one, but we hear from our parents about the earthquakes. That is why we need disaster statistics, as everybody is getting to it. So at present, what enabling environment we have is, as a Department of Disaster Management, we have disaster management information system where we collect all the disaster incident taking place in local government. It is called Dzongkhap. It's like district actually. Whole country is divided into 20 Dzongkhap, that is district, and then we have this disaster management officer, focal person. They report us also while they report to their local governor, we call Jongda. That is how disaster information is being relayed here. And we have National Statistical Bureau of Bhutan. It is called NSB. They collect a lot of statistics regularly, and when we want to relate to disaster, many of the data they have can actually be linked or related or used. Only thing is we need to, GDM and NSB, we need to collaborate and consult each other for making proper use of the statistics they collect for the disaster related works. As I say, NSB conducts population and housing every 5 years, but not very strictly. And they have very detailed data at household level. Unluckily, the data collected, household data collected are not geo-referenced, and the most geotagging is to the level of Dzongkhap, not Dzongkhap, but Gyeok and Jiok. Gyeok is subdivision of the district, then further subdivision of that Gyeok is called Jiok. So sometimes it is linked with the second subdivision of the Dzongkhap or the district. And 80% of the population reside in urban areas as per this one or NSP data, and those are geo-reference. That is, if they stay in urban area where the population density is higher, then that report can be at least related to those urban areas. And regarding the type of data that NSB collects, they collect to the level of roofing, wall materials, availability of toilet, potable water, even the food security and all. And the data they collect is really detailed one. And as I have already said, that if we, the DDM or NSB, get guided by the DRSF, this ESCAP group, I think we have data, though they may not be very accurate with the, I mean, they will have some temporal, or not very accurate, but we have quite data that can be really used for disaster. And in terms of policy, we have Disaster Management Act of 2013. I would like to mention here that Department of Disaster Management is also a very new office. Earlier, it was just a small division under Ministry of Home and Cultural Affairs. And around 2011 or 29, it was then established as a department with the mandate of preparing nation in terms of DRR and creating awareness, all those related disaster aspects.
Mr.
And,
Sonam,
yeah.
as we are running short of time, so
okay,
if you could, yeah, so there are some more slides, yeah.
Okay, yeah, then yeah, especially enabling environment I'm talking about. Then recently regarding the sharing of information amongst the government institutions, we have developed due information policy that mandates us to share the data for interoperability among different agencies of government. So this is really enabling. And again, by the Department of Information Technology, we have EG that mandates us to make our information or data interoperable amongst the government agencies, and that also enables us to develop the disaster statistics. Yeah, I think this following slides, they really they are just collection of what we have, like that we have been using Bhutan disaster assessment method that was based on DAVE info. Then we have flood engineering management under Ministry of Works and Human Settlement, then Department of Geology, Mines, under Ministry of Economic Affairs, then GLOF Research. We have then, and in terms of statistics, especially the specialist data, NLCS, National Land Commission Secretariat, has the maximum data that we can bank on and we can depend on them. So regarding data utilization, as I have mentioned earlier, in Bhutan, different agencies need to collaborate, come together, and do the necessary homework for this disaster statistics. Yeah, in the way forward, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we will have to identify the relevant data sets, then develop policies, draw agreement among different agencies, and advocate our policymaker, politicians about the disaster statistics. From my personal opinion, the most difficult thing would be to convince our policymaker, decision maker to support this. And we will have to really prove how useful that this disaster statistics can be. Unless disaster strikes, it will look, our work will look useless, but if disaster strikes, then they will realize. The COVID situation has revealed the same. And what I feel we need, when I say we, it's Bhutan, the Department of Disaster Management or NSB, when we come together and form a smaller group here, we will need technical support to develop DRSF framework, policy, then we may need to access some good example of the region, and then support on how to advocate and approach our decision makers. Thank you. Sorry, it looks I have dragged.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sonam. And from your presentation, actually, what we really, it was very clear that the better coordination is required for the data gaps as well as the statistical issues you are facing. So thank you very much. And I would like the participants to put forward your questions on the chat box, that we are running out of time, so we have another presentation as well. So now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Yeliz Tacker, who is a geological engineer, disaster and emergency management authority, planning and risk reduction department of the Ministry of Interior from Turkey. So the floor is yours, Ms. Yeliz.
Thank you, Ms. Shazna. Could you see my screen?
Yes, but it's not open yet.
How should I open?
Just double click on the presentation. We can see the...
Is there anything else that I need to do?
You have to open the presentation, or...
It's open?
It's open. But we are seeing your screen freezed, I think. How about others? Do you see the presentation now? I could see only the...
Now I opened my presentation.
No, we don't see your presentation. Maybe you are using two displays.
I'm not sure.
What you can do is...
now, could you see it?
Yeliz, what you can do is open first in your computer and then you share it.
Yes, I opened.
You open already?
Yes, I opened.
But you stop the screen sharing first.
Okay.
Okay, and then you open it in your computer.
Yes, it's
when
okay.
It's up as a presentation, and then you can try to share it again.
Oh, but how I will share publication image?
There is.
Yeah. Excuse me, Ms. Yeliz, we also have your presentation. We can share it for you.
Okay, please.
Okay, here goes.
Please, Maria. Thank you. So, just a minute, please. Şu toplantıda bugün. Maria, now is it okay?
No, I think the presentation is on. Is it from yours or Maria's? Is it? Maria? Your presentation is on now. You just have to view it. Full screen view. Yeah,
I cannot see, but if it's okay, I can start.
Yeah, please.
Okay, but I cannot see my presentation.
Oh, so then stop the sharing. So Maria would.
Okay, I stopped sharing.
Yeah. So Maria, would you please?
Yeah. I would request Ing, please, because the file is with her. Ing, can you please share?
Yok, göremiyorum buradan. Onlar şu an.
Yeah, now it's on. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. And thank you again, Ms. Shazna. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yeliz Teker. I'm a geological engineer and I'm working for the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, abbreviated as AFAD. I'm really very happy to have this opportunity to share our experiences on disaster-related work in statistics in Turkey. And yes, we can move. We can move on. Okay. First, I would like to thank Puji and my colleague from Turkish Statistical Institute for supporting my to prepare my presentation. Today, I will share brief information about AFAD and disaster-related statistics in Turkey. AFAD was established in 2009 under the Prime Minister of Turkey. It carries out its activities through provincial AFADs, affiliated directly to the governors in 81 provinces and disaster and emergency search and rescue units in 11 provinces. Within the scope of the regulations on the presidential government system, the Presidential Decree number 4, which was published in 2018, the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority reformed as an agency under the Ministry of Interior. As it's mentioned in the Presidential Decree number 4, one of the responsibilities of AFAD is collecting and evaluating information about disasters and emergencies occurring nationally and internationally. In addition, AFAD is also responsible for compiling and publishing data on disasters that occurred in nationwide according to the official statistical program. We can move another slide. Turkey is primarily facing earthquakes, landslides, and many natural disasters such as floods and avalanches. Although recorded in different kinds of media and with different methods, the availability of disaster records going back hundreds of years in Turkey, where there is a high risk of natural disasters, should be considered a gift to us from our ancestors. Yes, Maria, we can move on. The first step in a pre-disaster risk reduction and preparedness studies is the collection and archiving of accurate data. This need has gradually increased during disaster management. There are two important systems compiling disaster data in our country. The first one is the Disaster Risk Reduction System, ARAS, and the second one is the Disaster Management Decision Support System, IDES. Here you see ARAS system. ARAS is created to assess disaster risk using statistical analysis and disaster indexes after the determination of hazards. The Disaster Information Services module allows access to information about disasters that have in the system the period from the past into the present and to evaluate disasters. Here also you see the disaster study reports are prepared due to disaster events such as landslides, rockfalls, floods, and avalanches that have occurred since 1945 in our country. The data such as the number of people affected by and the number of damaged houses, etc. in these reports are entered into the ARAS Disaster Information Services to be used in disaster risk reduction studies. Thanks, Maria. We can move on. In order to prepare the Sentai Framework National Report, the 4 targets prepared by UNDRR, focusing especially on disaster loss data and indicators related to these targets, were rearranged by adapting them to the conditions of our country. A web-based interface titled Sendai was created in order to enter relevant disaster loss data within the scope of ARAS Disaster Information Services. Contact persons from 81 provincial AFADs were defined in the system to enter the data, and annual total data on flood, landslide, rockfall, avalanche, earthquake, and forest fire disasters frequently experienced in our country between 2015 and 2019 were reported online. Also, last year we reported the SDGs cross-cutting indicators with Sendai framework. Yes, Maria. And the other system is a disaster management decision support system, IDES. IDES provides the information of all phases of disaster management as an integrated infrastructure to be followed electronically for the Turkey disaster response system. In this context, a central spatial database was created by collecting spatial data from all institutions and organizations that can be used in disaster management. A system has been developed to process and analyze this data during disaster management. Within the scope of IDES, it's possible to display the basic information such as location, date, domain of the incidents, the number of deaths, number of injuries, type of number of research needed. Many data can be displayed automatically on the dashboards depending on the type and location of the incidents. IDES also provides the accuracy of the data obtained in disaster management process. Speed and convenience are provided in all kinds of operations. It's aimed to reduce risk and damage before the disaster, to prevent the loss of life and damage during the disaster, and to determine the recovery process faster after the disaster. Yes, Maria. Policy context of SDGs in Turkey could be emphasized it by three constituents. Firstly, statistic law, which laid the foundation of the Turkish statistical system, authorizes Turkish Statistical Institute to determine the statistical methods, definitions, classifications, and standards to be used in the production of official statistics in line with national and international norms and to prepare official statistics program. The second is the 11th development plan, of which the main objective is to reflect the sustainable development goals in line with our priorities and to establish an effective follow-up and review mechanism. And the third constituent is the official statistical program. The official statistical program establishes a framework for official and all authorities responsible for producing official statistics and their duties and defines the methodology, period, date of dissemination of all official statistics produced in Turkey. Yes, Maria. The disaster management agencies keep the data on disaster events according to agreed on definitions, classifications by time and geographical areas. However, in recent studies and strategic documents, such as Sendai framework, it has been observed that these data are not sufficient. For this reason, data such as disaster risks, covering vulnerability, damage caused by disasters in critical infrastructures, also education and health facilities, and economic losses caused by disasters are also needed. Related to disaster expenditures, the working group on economic effects of natural disasters was established by Planning and Risk Reduction Department. The purpose of this working group is to investigate the economic burden and sectoral effects of each disaster that occurs and to determine the methodology of economic impacts of stakeholder data. Yes, Maria. Various data are needed for different types of disasters. As you see in the table, these data can be provided from related institutions. To coordinate this process, the Sendai framework focal points are requested from the related institutions. Yes, Maria. Here in the slide, I would like to mention the tasks of AFAD and Turkish Statistical Institute briefly. AFAD is collecting and analyzing disaster data from ministries, provinces, private sector, and etc. for disaster risk management, providing disaster-related data statistics for development and other national commitments, including SDGs, and monitoring, reporting on national priorities, Sendai framework, and other national commitments. Turkish Statistical Institute is implementing the third official statistic program, coordinating official statistics and publication of official statistics. Yes, Maria, this is my last slide.
Okay, thanks.
Here I would like to share very briefly our opportunities and our challenges. Availability of disaster records going back hundreds of years is an exceptional opportunity for us. The challenge is to keep the data in different systems and with different methods. So we are studying to update the disaster management decision support system in order to consolidate disaster statistics into the single system in our country. Thank you very much. And also thank you, Maria, for your support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yeliz, and Maria as well. Yeah. And Ms. Yeliz, you have taken us through the interactive disaster data systems and platforms you've been using in Turkey. And from your presentations, what I've obtained is that if the data is updated on a regular basis, we could present the data to the policy level and the users in a much user-friendly manner. So I guess this could be replicated by our technical group members as well, I think. So as we are now almost time up for the meeting, I would like to open for if there are any comments, questions, or any suggestions on these two presentations. Just raise your hand or just put on your question on the chat box, please. We would go for 2 minutes. So yeah, please, Mr. Tam, I think.
Hi, colleagues. Just saying, I always appreciate these thematic working groups, and it's good experience to hear from colleagues. The extent of which Yılmaz, like ADES, is doing in Turkey is fascinating. How much and I wish you all the best in terms of consolidating all the ministries and the data and the systems. It's definitely no easy task. I just wanted to maybe take a step back and seek thoughts from maybe the organizers around this and reflecting upon APM-CDRR next year as a convening kind of point of collaboration. We know that in the Asia Action Plan, for example, regional plan on DRR, that disaggregation of age, sex, and disability is intended to be a milestone for all countries at 100% level in 2020. And we also recognize we're far short of achieving that, right? There's two parts to that. One part is, I think, the systems that enable that. So there's so many devices and technologies and databases available now that can help facilitate that. I wonder, can we develop between this group a one-year action plan so that by the time of APM-CDRR, we convene the relevant data producers and technology providers together and say, all right, we know that this is a challenge. How do we collectively address this together? And what tools are available? What's financially feasible? And work on a one-year action plan so that by APM-CDRR, we kind of develop a very concrete action plan with the providers around it. That's one area that I'm curious about. And then on the aspect of that area of sex, age, and disability as disaggregated data, I think there's always going to be capacity constraints. But how do we ensure, similarly, within a one-year period, that we achieve this milestone, right? So it means working with CSOs and community operators that crowdsource the information. It's making sure that existing census processes capture that kind of vulnerability, right? But if this is a target, a milestone target that we need to achieve by 2020, if we don't address this year, and we're already behind, we're not going to meet the target next year for the regional plan. So just adding a few thoughts. I think we have this 1 year time frame to breathe, and I'm really interested to see how we can collaborate on this. Cheers, over.
Thank you, Mr. Dam. I think Puji, would you like to add on to the question?
Well, it is the fact that our leaders make many commitments in many fronts at different forums. And one of that is the commitment to make our data and statistics be disaggregated by sex, by age and disabilities, right? And particular to Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, which has been postponed to next year. Mr. Tam Huang is correctly saying that there is a commitment made. Question is, where are we with that and what that is that we can do? I would like to recall that in the last meeting, Mr. Tim Wilcox of UNDRR has enlightened this TWG about the SADD, SADD, the Sex and Age Disability Disaggregation. And about 3 meetings ago, our colleague Sarah from UN Women also saying similar things. So I guess right now, my response to that, Sahnas, is that we are trying to do the major chunks first. In the case of Turkey and Bhutan, we try to make the statistic office and disaster office, right? To start conversation, start telling what you have, what I have. This is an early stage. But I would like to say that perhaps in the case of Indonesia, it's moving to organizing its data, introducing the metadata. That probably is the time to start bringing technicalities like disaggregation, right? So my suggestion, my response to that is, as we move along with technical working group, that would probably naturally will progress. Now, our colleagues, our partners from the UN agencies like WFP, UNDRR, UN Women, could actually help with technical inputs of how to go about it. And if there is financial support, so much the better, right? But I guess what I'm saying is that joint work then would work. If Mr. Tam Huang has, input to give to the 5-year plan, that now is open for 2 weeks at the confluence, that could be one avenue where he could put his proposition or his contribution to the 5-year plan that could complement the basic thing that we are proposing. Thank you, Sasnas.
Thank you, Puji. Now that we do not have any questions on the chat box and no hand raised, so I would rather end this session. Thank you, Mr. Sonam and Ms. Yali, for the very interesting and informative presentations. So now I would like to hand over the floor to the chair, Madam Chair, for the closing session. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Shazna, for your great facilitation, and then thank you, the presenters, for the excellent presentations. So now we are close to the end of the meeting. So I would like to thank all our speakers and then facilitators for joining today's meeting. Before closing the meeting, I would like to ask the Secretariat to speak if you have any housekeeping announcements or any other businesses. Thank you.
Yes, Yuna. So the Secretariat will be providing the members. We will be writing to you and providing you the direct link where you can look at the 5-year plan in the Confluence platform. And we encourage everybody to have a look at it, review, and provide comments for the plan. And we will provide a deadline so that of 2 weeks, so that we will be able to finalize the plan. So that's it.
Thank you, Maria. And then again, I highly encourage the working group members to provide your inputs and comments on the plan for next 2 weeks. So if there are none, before I declare this meeting closed, I would like to let you know that our next meeting is scheduled on Friday, 13th of April. So with this, I would like to close the technical working group meeting. Thank you all for your active participation and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.